Welcome to the program. A Russian rocket attack damaged a kindergarten and a school in the city of Kramatorsk in eastern Ukraine's Donetsk, while a hospital in the southern Ukrainian port city of Kherson has been shelled by Russian forces overnight. Similarly, the mayor of Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko, said multiple explosions were reported in Kyiv last night. Mr. Klitschko said on his Telegram page, explosions in the capital, initially in Obolon and Sviatoshvinsky residential districts. All services are being sent to the scene. In the latest district, fire and rescue services are responding to the scene of a building fire. The Kyiv Regional Military Administration said the city's air raid sirens were activated ahead of the explosions. However, Ukraine's air defenses say it's shot down 14 of 15 Shahed drones launched by Russia into Kyiv's airspace. In the meantime, the Kremlin says it'll keep demanding an international investigation into explosions that damaged the Nord Stream gas pipelines under the Baltic Sea last year after failing to win backing for a probe at the United Nations. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said everyone should be interested in an impartial investigation in order to find the culprits. On Monday, Russia failed to get the UN Security Council to ask for an independent inquiry into explosions in September that ruptured the Nord Stream gas pipelines connecting Russia and Germany and spewed gas into the Baltic. Mr. Peskov said Russia viewed the outcome at the UN with regret. And Ukraine's Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov has released footage of what he says were British Challenger 2 main battle tanks that had recently arrived in Ukraine. According to Mr. Reznikov, was seen climbing into one of the vehicles and thanking British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace and the United Kingdom for the tanks. He wrote in his tweet he took one of the tanks for a spin. The vehicles would soon begin their combat missions. Britain pledged in January to send 14 of the tanks ahead of an expected Kyiv counteroffensive to further repel a Russian full-scale invasion now in its 14th month. Meanwhile, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has confirmed that Germany has delivered 18 Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine and is still preparing to deliver more tanks. Together with Sweden and Portugal, a battle group of Leopard 2 A6 tanks had been promised, and 4 more tanks than originally planned were delivered. Leopard 1 A5 tanks are also set to be delivered, but are currently under repair in Germany. According to the German Ministry of Defense, the financing of the tank repairs is being provided by Germany, Denmark and the Netherlands, the goal being to provide the first 25 tanks by summer, about 80 by the end of the year, and at least 100 Leopard 1 A5 tanks. Foreign instructors trained more than 100 Ukrainian army recruits in Donetsk region. Magnus Ek, a private foreign military advisor from Sweden, provides training at the request of the Ukrainian military for Ukrainian soldiers that lack combat experience, as well as more proficient service members. The training starts with building the basics, such as throwing hand grenades and assaulting enemy positions. In the meantime, Ukraine is aiming to exhaust and inflict heavy losses on Russian forces trying to capture the small eastern city of Bakhmut, and that's according to the commander of the Ukrainian ground forces. In a video showing him addressing soldiers in what appeared to be a large industrial warehouse, General Alexander Sersky said Russia was continuing to focus on Bakhmut area after months of battle. Moscow sees capturing Bakhmut as vital to its efforts to establish complete control over the Donbass industrial region in eastern Ukraine. He told soldiers in the video the goal was to eliminate as many Russian forces as possible and create the conditions to be able to begin counter-offensive actions. His remarks again underline Ukraine's desire to hold on to Bakhmut rather than pull back to limit casualties. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in his nightly address that he had visited buildings hit by Russian missiles in the southeastern Zaporizhia region. He also said the southern city of Dnipro had been a fortress since 2014 when pro-Russian separatists in the eastern region of Donbass declared independence and fighting broke out.
Today in Zaporizhia, I visited the sites where Russian rockets hit residential buildings. Ordinary houses, burnt, partially destroyed, unfortunately. Dozens of people were injured by this insane Russian strike. The terrorists knew precisely where they were aiming their missiles. High explosive smirch at houses. 37 people were injured. 2 died. My condolences to those who have lost loved ones. More than 400 people applied for help. Dnipro has been our fortress for more than 9 years, all this time supporting the front line and warriors. It is here in Dnipro that since 2014, thousands of our soldiers have been saved after being wounded. Dnipro concentrated the work of volunteers from the first weeks of aggression in 2014.
And the Ukrainian ambassador to Switzerland says the Swiss foreign policy tradition of neutrality should not impede it from re-exporting weapons to Ukraine, which he says were urgently needed to defeat the Russian invasion. Speaking at the Ukrainian embassy in Bern, Irina Venediktova said that neutrality and the re-export of arms to Ukraine should be viewed as separate issues. Switzerland's government said earlier this month it would not change its long-standing policy, banning any country that buys Swiss arms from sending them to the party of a conflict.
I have dialogue. Of course, I speak in all meetings about re-export, because for us very important to have weapon and ammunition. I respect Swiss neutrality, because Swiss neutrality is a pillar of Swiss state. The main power here in Switzerland, it is people. And I know when people decide to do something, and it will be their decisions, government and parliament will do, actually. That's why, yes, questions and these all discussions about re-exports, I have every day. And every day I stress that neutrality and re-export, it is absolutely different terms. We need this weapon and ammunition as fast as possible. It is a question of surviving our people, our nation, our state. We can't find any, question marks about this. Please let other countries help us. We don't ask, give your weapon to us directly, not. We just ask not to block. Because actually after the Second World War, international law, international humanitarian law was established as this possibility that actually victim can protect itself, third parties can't help protect victim and self, and actually all others should not contribute this crime, because crime of aggression, it is crime, and we are still living on crime of aggression. And I just ask not contribute crime of aggression. It's a question about signals. It's a question about position. And of course, whole world is watching, and whole world expects fair position, not more than fair position.
The VOA's Anna Chenikova joins me now from Kyiv. Anna, good to see you. Let's continue with what has happened today. Multiple explosions were reported in Kyiv last night. Give us an update of the situation as we speak.
Good evening. Yes, so yesterday, again, late in the evening, was another drone attack across Ukraine, particularly central part and eastern part of the country. And a couple of explosions were heard in the city of Kyiv. However, these explosions were the result of the air defense in action, and air defense shut down a couple of drones over the capital. Unfortunately, the debris of one of the drone hit one of the areas, one of the districts. The explosions were reported in 2 districts of Kyiv, but damages because of the caused by the rubbles, by the debris, was reported in one of the districts, and this was a store space of 200 square meters. It was quite a big fire at the spot. But at the location, but it was localized quite quickly. No casualties were reported. This was confirmed by the mayor of Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko. For the moment, situation in Kyiv is stable. It was no additional energy outages or anything like that due to this attack. And according to Ukrainian general staff, in general, 14 out of 15 drones were destroyed during this attack, and all drones were destroyed in the Kyiv and Kyiv region.
So Ukraine has received its first, British main Challenger 2 battle tanks, and Germany has also delivered 18 Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. We know how these tanks, impact the war. Do you think this will trigger Russia to also try to do more?
Not particularly the delivery of this equipment, I guess, because definitely the decision to deliver and when the decision was made was kind of a so we've seen the reaction by Russian Federation, and it was kind of a trigger. But again, it doesn't look, at least here in Ukraine, and it's not considered that actually the receivement of this weapons and delivery of these weapons would actually cause any additional reactions. Of course, Russian Federation would probably continue to try to advance in the Donetsk region, but this is not going to change either weapons are coming or not. This is their tactics, and this is what Russian Ministry of Defense were saying, that the battle for Bakhmut is currently the hottest spot, and if Bakhmut would go under Russian control, then Russian forces will try to go forward. So particularly these deliveries, it doesn't really look that they might cause any additional unexpected actions or reactions by Russian Federation. But of course, this is a great great positive sign for Ukraine, as as Ukrainian forces are getting ready for this counteroffensive, and delivery of this equipment is crucial to start to begin this counteroffensive.
It is quite a hot battle for Bakhmut, as you have just said. But, Ukraine is trying to retain control of Bakhmut. Russia is trying to take control of Bakhmut. What has become, of the city as we speak?
Situation is very difficult, and it remains very, on the edge, let's put it this way. This is, again, according to the official reports, and we know that certain part of the city is under Russian control, some part of the city remains under Ukrainian control, and particularly Ukrainian soldiers keep their defense positions and make sure that all the delivery, supply chains, supply routes are under control, so they can remain in that area. According to Mr. Syrsky, who is Ukrainian chief commander of the ground forces, he mentioned, and not only him actually, a lot of Ukrainian military officials mentioned that the defense of Bakhmut is very important, and Ukrainian forces will stay there and will remain there for as long as possible in order to save time for Ukrainian army to prepare for the counteroffensive and to prepare the better positions for this counteroffensive. And of course, if we look at the city of Bakhmut, its location particularly, if Russian forces take Bakhmut under control and go forward, then such cities as Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, Konstantinivka, which is almost the final point of the Donetsk region, and these cities are almost at the border with Kharkiv region, they would be under direct fire by Russian forces. It would be much easier for Russian forces to attack them with artillery. And apparently, and again, this is what was mentioned also by Ukrainian military officials, that this is also one of the reasons why Bakhmut is so important to keep Ukrainian forces in Bakhmut. So for the moment, we hear that fierce battles are ongoing, continue. But again, a couple of days ago, Ukrainian General Staff announced that it was possible for Ukrainian armed forces to stabilize some of the areas. So apparently, Russian forces are also having certain troubles and difficulties in that area. So basically, situation remains, as I said at the beginning, on the edge.
So how are Ukrainians responding, or should I say reacting to, Russia president's announcement of stationing tactical nuclear weapons to neighboring Belarus?
Well, Ukraine had its official statement by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also Ukraine, when this announcement was made, Ukraine demanded urgent extraordinary meeting of the UN Security Council, because of course this is, in a certain way considered as as certain, actions of escalation of nuclear blackmail, and Ukrainian, and particularly Ukrainian Foreign Affairs said that this is basically another provocation step by Russian Federation. This is, and also we've heard the reaction by NATO that calls Russia nuclear rhetoric dangerous and irresponsible, and more or less similar reaction we hear from Kyiv, but of course Kyiv concentrates on the message that it's a provocation step by Russian forces, by Russian Federation, and certain, nuclear escalation, if we can put it this way. Of course, situation is serious, and Ukraine is definitely concerned, because Belarus is another country with which Ukraine is bordering. But again, Ukrainian officials have said quite a lot of times already that Belarus is considered as occupied territory by Russia, by the Ukrainian state, and basically such actions is just additional sign that such escalation might be another step by Russian Federation. But again, we will see if this is happening, and if it happens, what would be the actions.
Well, Anna, thank you for this update, and please do stay safe.
Thank you.